The seven deadly sins are sins that can destroy a man. The potential you have shown previously can be very easily devoured by these sins. The seven deadly sins as boxers. In this video, we'll be talking about the sin of lust, and the fighter that this will be assigned to is Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner began his professional boxing career on May 31st, 2008. He had a tremendous amateur pedigree, amassing a record of 300 wins with only 19 defeats. He was a two-time national Silver Gloves champion as well as a national Junior Olympic semifinalist. He had a marvelous combination of speed and power while also showing charisma and a sense of marketability. While Broner inside the ring was an animal, outside of the ring, well, I guess you could also refer to him as an animal. At the young age of 34, Broner has 7 kids with 6 different women. He also had his first child only 9 years ago. Broner seems to be a loving father to his children, but with him having so many kids with so many different women, especially in such a short span of time, it's only up to our imagination how many other women during this time Broner slept with, let alone throughout his life. Prior to this run of different baby moms, Broner has had, as a pro fighter, amassed a record of 29 wins, 1 loss, and 21 wins come by way of knockout, while also being a two-weight champion. After starting this tirade, his record has since been 6 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, with 3 wins by KO, also becoming a champion once more. The issue doesn't only lie with him taking a dip in his level of performance in the ring, but furthermore, with his level of his activity. Broner has only had 10 fights in about 10 years. On the contrary, he had 30 fights in the first 7 years of his career prior to this turn of events in his life. All that has been mentioned, while not godly, could not be seen as very harmful compared to the next saga of the sin of lust affecting his life. On February 13th, 2018, Adrian Broner had been arrested on a misdemeanor for sexual battery charge, later being released on bail. The accusation is that Broner groped a woman at the mall. On June 18th, 2018, Broner was accused of sexually assaulting a woman at a nightclub. He was then later forced to pay $830,000 for this crime. It's very apparent that the sin of lust has been a roadblock throughout the later half of Adrian Broner's career. A fighter pinned as the heir to Floyd Mayweather with very apparent ability, not being able to reach the heights that he was meant to. Broner has stayed out of legal trouble regarding sexual activity since this time and can hopefully stay out of it. The next sin we'll be diving into is the sin of gluttony. This is the sin of overindulging, especially overeating. The man best for this position is former unified heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz. While standing at 6'2", for his professional debut on March 28, 2009, he came in at a staggering 297 pounds. While Ruiz has always been massive, he has always been a good fighter. Before his first title shot against Joseph Parker, Ruiz had built a record of 29 wins, with 19 wins come by way of knockout, also 0 defeats. He was also 40 pounds lighter than he was in his debut. He would fight a disciplined fight throughout each match and would nearly become a champion against Parker, losing a razor-close majority decision. Ruiz kept his head up. He got back in the ring and went on a 3-fight win streak before getting the opportunity of a lifetime, taking on unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. Ruiz was a last-minute replacement, replacing another candidate for the spot, Jarrell Miller. Ruiz weighed in at 268 pounds for his bout against AJ. Ruiz made the world his oyster this night, getting the upset of the decade, stopping Anthony Joshua and becoming the unified heavyweight champion. After this win, Ruiz became a star. Joshua and his promoter, Eddie Hearn, enforced their rematch clause, and after some back-and-forth negotiation, the rematch was set for December 7th in Saudi Arabia. Things went very wrong for Ruiz. The Mexican-American champion had always kept a lower profile and was never too well known or too rich as a fighter. After this victory, everything about him changed. He started to flex money, buy cars, embrace an extravagant lifestyle, and worst of all, eat. Ruiz had blown up in weight prior to training camp for the rematch. Ruiz had clearly overindulged since his win against Joshua in all aspects of his life. By the night of the weigh-in for the fight, Ruiz wasn't too far off from his fighting weight all the way back in his pro debut, coming in at a massive 285 pounds. The rematch was nothing like the first fight. Joshua outclassed and frustrated the much slower, much less aggressive Ruiz, cruising to a wide unanimous decision victory. Ruiz took some time off, coming back 16 months later to take on Chris Arreola. Ruiz changed trainers, joining Canelo's team with Eddie Reynoso. He also lost weight, coming in at 256 pounds. While he was in better shape, the glamour that he had embraced after his win against Joshua had shown to weaken Ruiz, as he struggled against the ancient Arreola, winning a close unanimous decision. Since his defeat to AJ, he has only fought twice in 4.5 years. The overeating and the lack of discipline after his victory against Anthony Joshua limited his possibility for true superstardom and true legacy to only one fight. Ruiz comes back this August against Jarrell Miller and will hopefully be able to rebuild the pieces of his career. The sin that comes before the fall, we will now be talking about the sin of pride. This refers to an inflated sense of self-accomplishment. Edgar Berlanga is a fitting choice. Berlanga was a touted prospect before making his pro debut on April 29, 2016. He accomplished an impressive amateur pedigree and record of 162 wins with 17 defeats. He made it to the 2013 National PAL League Championships, 2013 National Junior Championships, 2014 National Youth Championships, and 2015 National Youth Championships. In his professional debut, it was the beginning of his viral first-round knockout streak. The streak lasted 16 fights before Demond Nicholson made it out of the first round with him, and then making it the entire 8 rounds. Prior to his bout with Nicholson, he was drawing lots of attention, and was calling out big names, even as big as Canelo Alvarez. Nicholson was the beginning of Berlanga's momentum taking a plummet. He went on to be unable to stop his next 4 opponents, going from all first-round KOs to all decision victories. At this point, Berlanga had struggled with gatekeepers and tune-up fights. While it was apparent that even though Berlanga was a good fighter, he clearly wasn't elite and was unworthy of the big fights. He was still calling out Canelo while barely having any experience in 12-round bouts, as well as never facing a current or former world champion. To add insult to injury, there was leaked sparring footage of Berlanga and junior middleweight title challenger Erickson Lubin. Berlanga was training with a man 2 weight classes below him, who was also known to have a questionable chin, and in the footage shown, he was getting outclassed and hurt. Everyone was questioning if Berlanga was even that good, and while no one views him as a threat to the top dogs, he was seen this week taunting Caleb Plant, a former champion who has taken on the elites of Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez, even attempting to claim that Caleb Plant was afraid of the very green Berlanga. Until Berlanga takes on opponents of note, and until he proves he can beat them, he is far out of his depth trying to challenge the cream of the crop. Jason Quigley and Steve Rolls are not good enough to be showing this level of arrogance this early on into his career. When you attempt to take on guys such as Canelo Alvarez, David Benavidez, and Jaime Munguia, you have to give us a better showing than he has shown in his previous bouts, and much better performances than he has. He clearly needs more experience and more time before he can really compete with the guys on the upper echelon. Sloth is a sin that everyone has committed, but some have committed a higher degree of it than others. That man would be Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of what many consider the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, as well as a living legend and an icon of the sport, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. He was raised to inherit his father's legacy and to continue the Chavez name prominent in the sport of boxing. Chavez and his team decided to skip the amateur process and go immediately into pro boxing, having a high quantity of fights early, similar to many Mexican fighters. Chavez was winning all of his fights early on in his career. He was a very raw fighter but had good power, punch output, chin, and size for his weight class, as well as being tough and durable. Chavez built himself an impressive 42-0-1 record before his first title fight, taking on German contender Sebastian Zbik for the WBC middleweight championship. Chavez was the big favorite but heavily struggled with Zbik. It was a fan-friendly fight, with Chavez getting the narrow majority decision victory. He defended twice more before taking on Irish challenger Andy Lee. Chavez was expected to have a tough fight against Lee, as Lee was a very formidable challenger, many even picking Chavez to lose. Chavez had the best performance of his entire professional career, stopping the smaller Lee in the 7th round. This set up a legacy matchup with the modern-day great, Argentina's Sergio Martinez. This was a huge opportunity for Chavez to prove that he was his own man with his own legacy. Martinez was a genuinely great fighter, and Chavez had a lot to gain in this bout. In training camp, Chavez self-sabotaged. While Martinez was training his hardest, showing the discipline of a champion, Chavez, to the frustration of his coach and his father, was slacking off. He was so lazy that even HBO's 24/7 was able to capture it. By the time of the fight, it was clear that Martinez wasn't just better, but was also clearly more prepared. He dominated the first 11 rounds of the fight and built himself a giant lead. Chavez showed that he was still a force, however, dropping Martinez in the 12th round and having him badly hurt. He ended up losing a wide unanimous decision due to not being able to stop Martinez. However, the fight made us all question. If Chavez was more prepared, he may have been able to hurt Martinez earlier and hurt him more, maybe even getting a stoppage and getting a huge legacy victory. After this defeat, Chavez completely fell off. He clearly wasn't the same physically or mentally. He received a gift decision against an old gatekeeper in Brian Vera while also missing weight drastically. He missed weight and then got stopped by Polish fighter Andrzej Fonfora. Getting dominated by what Chavez wanted to become in Canelo Alvarez added insult to injury. Quitting against Danny Jacobs in a fight that was competitive while it lasted, and then embarrassing the sport of boxing while losing to UFC legend Anderson Silva in a boxing match, Chavez's career can only be described as a tragedy. Envy is jealousy towards another person's happiness or accomplishments. This is made worse when that envy is directed towards someone you shouldn't have a distaste towards. Juan Manuel Marquez fits the criteria. An all-time great, one of the best Mexican fighters of all time, as well as one of the best fighters of the Mayweather-Pacquiao era. We see him having a very obvious jealousy towards another Mexican great, Canelo Alvarez. Marquez was always respected, however, he was never a huge name and was never a box office draw. Canelo Alvarez has made far more than him and is a much bigger star than Marquez ever was. Marquez once listed his top 5 Mexican fighters of all time, with Canelo not making the list. The bigger issue isn't that Canelo wasn't on there, but that he went out of his way to come at Alvarez, stating that Canelo doesn't deserve to be considered one of the best at all. While some claims Marquez make are valid, such as Canelo choosing his opponents, having more of a say than most fighters do when it comes to who he will be taking on, there are times where Marquez is irrational in his claims, such as wildly stating that he felt Danny Jacobs beat Canelo Alvarez. It's understandable for Marquez to criticize Canelo due to both of them being Mexican and him giving Canelo objective criticism, but Marquez is always silent when Canelo does something good. It's believed that this stems from Canelo turning down Marquez all the way back in 2011 for a fight. Marquez has always faced elite competition, but he also took lighter touches in his career when complaining about Canelo taking on John Ryder. It must be acknowledged that Marquez fought Mike Alvarado, Sergey Fedchenko, and others in between his tough opponents. Marquez should be proud of his career and mentor current Mexican fighters like Canelo. Objective criticism is fine, but there's more going on in Marquez's head than many think. Marquez has also claimed that Canelo will never be the best, which is simply hating, as anyone can become the best if they accomplish more than the ones around them. What makes it worse is Marquez said this in November of 2021 when Canelo was top 3, with some even having him number 1 on their pound-for-pound list. Wrath is characterized as uncontrollable anger and rage. Gervonta Tank Davis has shown this previously in his career. Davis was a tremendous amateur. He went 205-15. He's a 3-time National Silver Gloves champ and a 2-time PAL champion. He made his pro debut on February 22, 2013. He gained the attention of all-time great Floyd Mayweather and made his television debut on April 1, 2016, getting a 6-round TKO victory. 8 months later, he got his first title shot, taking on Puerto Rico's Jose Pedraza. Tank showed superstar potential, dispatching Pedraza in the 7th round. He made 2 defenses of his title after winning both by stoppage, capping off a breakout 2017. This is where the issues begin for Davis. On September 19, 2017, an arrest warrant was issued for Davis for first-degree aggravated assault, which happened 1 month prior. A childhood friend of Davis, Anthony Wheeler, accused Davis of punching him on the side of the head with a gloved fist, giving him a concussion. Wheeler eventually dropped the charges, and him and Tank seem to be on good terms since then. Davis returned to the ring in April 2018, demolishing Argentinian Jesus Cuellar, before a few months later more legal trouble occurring for Davis, as he was arrested on September 14th for an alleged fist fight. Davis managed to escape too much legal trouble from that event and had a dominant 2019, winning all 3 of his fights by knockout, before more issues ensued. On February 1st, 2020, Davis was seen publicly getting physical with his girlfriend at a basketball game in Miami, and then dragging her into a different room of the stadium. Davis got through that fiasco and continued his career, viciously knocking out Leo Santa Cruz on Halloween Day, before a few weeks later another scandal. Davis had been involved in a hit and run, which had caused serious injury while driving through a red light. This had the most dire consequence out of all of his previous scandals, where he was sent to 3 months of house arrest and 3 years of probation. Davis violated his house arrest halfway through and had to serve the remainder of his sentence in prison. Most recently, Davis had another domestic violence accusation. However, the woman involved revoked her accusation and Davis was able to continue his career. Davis has clearly had issues of wrath throughout his life and career. He aggressively comes for others in interviews and social media, while also showing to have a big temper when aggravated. Thankfully for Davis, this hasn't affected his performance in the ring, and he's been dominant. but it has stumped his career development as he's had to temporarily put his career on hold previously due to these roadblocks slowing him down. Greed is the excessive desire for wealth and material possessions, the root being the love of money. Floyd Money Mayweather is the definition of this. Born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, not coming from a rich background or a rich area, he went pro as a fighter on October 11th, 1996, and was nothing other than dominant throughout this early stage of his career. No one was able to touch him, and he wasn't just outclassing these guys, but knocking them out while also having the ability to market himself. He became a champion only 2 years later, outclassing Genaro Hernandez to an 8th round corner stoppage. While everyone knew how good of a fighter he was, he didn't get his first big fight until 5 title defenses later, where he took on 33-0 fan favorite Diego Corrales. Floyd utterly outclassed Corrales, dropping him multiple times before stopping him in the 10th round. On June 25, 2005, Mayweather got put in his first pay-per-view, taking on another fan favorite, Canada's Arturo Gatti. It was another one-sided beating, with Mayweather winning by a 6th round corner stoppage. While Mayweather continued beating top-tier fighters, he wasn't making superstar level money yet. He was viewed as a great fighter, but wasn't making the money of a superstar. This all changed when he took on the golden boy of boxing, Oscar De La Hoya, on May 5th, 2007. This fight has a lot of fascinating symbolism to it. To begin, when Mayweather edged out De La Hoya to a split decision victory, he also took De La Hoya's fame, and by doing this, his star power and marketability. He also took the first week of May as well, as this was the beginning of Mayweather fighting every first week of May for the rest of his career, aside from when he was temporarily retired. Floyd Mayweather wasn't Pretty Boy Floyd, but Money Mayweather after defeating Oscar. Retiring at 50-0 while being 24-0 in title fights and 13-0 against former or current world champions, Mayweather didn't just amass a tremendous legacy, but a tremendous fortune. Forbes estimated that in just the 2010s, Mayweather had earned a whopping $915 million. Mayweather has then proceeded to not just buy a huge amount of material possessions, owning according to him about 100 cars and a $30 million mansion, but he also heavily promotes gambling as well as an ultra-materialistic lifestyle. He began the trend of fighting opponents based on pay over just how good of fighters they were. While Mayweather does receive criticism for his idol of money, it isn't all negative. Mayweather does do his fair share of charitable work and kind acts, known for paying for foundations, making foundations, paying medical bills, and paying for funerals.